the mango orchard of Plassey, the historical site where Nawab Siraj-ud-Dawla of the Bengal Suba squared up against the British East India Company in the month of June 1757. The one-day battle elicited a fatal end to the 15-month-long reign of the Nawab. It denotes the beginning of what is known as the modern era of Indian history. Siraj-ud-Dawla's defeat at Plassey laid the foundation for colonial rule in Bengal as well as in India. This carried on uninterrupted for the next 200 years.
Right now we are at the battlefield of Plassey that took place on 23rd June 1757. It was fought only for 11 hours, but it changed the history of India, as this date marks the beginning of modern India. A trading company that was East India Company became a territorial power only after this battle. We learned so many things from this battle, and there are so many other stories and facts which are still shrouded in mystery, but certain things which we talk about are proven. We have conclusive proof. The first is the treachery committed by his own commander-in-chief and also by his kith and kin. The French army supported him, but his own army did not support him, did not fight for him. But apart from all this, it also speaks about the incompetence of Siraj-ud-Dawla as a war strategist and also about his governance, because conspiracies were hatched for months together and he was totally unaware of it, remaining confined to his own world.
The wide expanse of Bengal, Bihar, Orissa was known as the Bengal Suba. Murshidabad was at its center.
One of the landmarks of Murshidabad is this Tripoli Gate. In 1725, Nawab of Bengal, Shuja Khan, got it constructed. As you can see, there are 3 gates, one for Bengal, one for Orissa and one for Bihar. Though it was a unified state of Bengal, but Bihar and Orissa had distinct identities, and so different gates were made for these 2 provinces also. Dignitaries from Bihar and Orissa came, entered through one gate, but when they returned, it was from different gates. On the roof of the gate, that is on the first floor, there were arrangements for music, which was meant to welcome the dignitaries from different states.
The capital was founded by Murshid Quli Zafar Khan in the year 1704. Murshidabad carries his name. Nawab Murshid Quli Khan built the Katra Mosque in 1723. Alongside, he laid a katra, or a bazaar or marketplace, and hence the name Katra Mosque. The mosque, ornamented with 5 domes, is 140 feet long and 25 feet wide. The name of the historically significant Jahan Kosha cannon is associated with this mosque. The distinctiveness of the tomb of Nawab Murshid Quli Khan is that it is located right beneath the stairs. The Nawab's last wish was that everyone who came to the mosque should be able to trudge over his ephemeral body lying in the tomb. Shujauddin succeeded the throne after Nawab Murshid Quli Khan. And after his death, Sarfaraz Khan took over the reins of the Nawabi. After defeating Sarfaraz at the Battle of Giria, Mirza Muhammad Khan, who later became known as Alivardi Khan, sought approval from the Mughal court to govern the Bengal Suba and to become the Nawab.
মুর্শিদ কুলি খান আজিমুর শানের নিয়ন্ত্রণ থেকে বাইরে আসার জন্য মুর্শিদাবাদে তার
To get out Azimut Khan's control, Murshid Quli Khan moved his Diwani to Murshidabad. There were many other influential groups in Bengal in the 18th century. The Jagat Sets earned fame as bankers or traders. The power of the zamindars was gradually increasing. The merchants played a significant role. Fortune seekers like Murshid Quli Khan influenced the aristocracy in Bengal with their martial skills. Azimut Khan conspired to remove Murshid Quli Khan. As Murshid Quli Khan reported this to Aurangzeb, Azimut Khan was removed to Patna. Alivardi Khan and his brother Haji Muhammad were fortune-seeking mercenaries during the reign of Suza Muhammad Khan. They demonstrated their martial skills. They outdid the rebels in war. Pleased with his skill, Suza Khan conferred the title Mahabat to Alivardi Khan. Mahabat means the mighty warrior. Alivardi Khan also received the title Bahadur.
Alivardi Khan governed for 16 years from 1740 to 1756. However, a long period of his reign was spent withstanding successive Maratha invasions. At that time, Murshidabad and adjoining Qasim Bazar were the major centers of trade and commerce for local and foreign traders. They used to build kutis or trading centers to manage business.
Alivardi was able to establish his credibility as a ruler. He had been able to understand the equation of the four spheres of power.
Nawab Alivardi had no son. He had 3 daughters. In 1733, Amina, the youngest daughter, and her husband Zainuddin Ahmed were blessed with a boy, Siraj-ud-Dawla. Alivardi designated Siraj as his successor to the throne. From the very first day of young Siraj's ascension, on the 10th of April 1756, conspiracies were woven to dislodge the newly appointed Nawab.
পলাশীর যুদ্ধ একটা অত্যন্ত বিতর্কিত বিষয়। এই বিষয়কে ঘিরে ঐতিহাসিকদের মধ্যে আমরা জানি নানা ধরনের বিতর্ক আছে। সাম্রাজ্যবাদী লেখকরা খুব সঙ্গত কারণে
The Battle of Plassey is a controversial issue. There are debates among historians on this issue. Imperialist historians held Siraj-ud-Dawla responsible for obvious reasons. Indian historians believe that the British were responsible for this. Imperialist historians argued that the battle was a result of Siraj's insatiable desire for wealth. Historians like Peter Marshall or Bailey argued that the British had no calculated plotting behind the battle. Bailey argued that it was an Indian-born conspiracy. It was said that a class alliance was formed in society. Those who were in control of economic power conspired against the Nawab. Historians like Brijen Gupta opined that the sea trade with Bengal resulted in some sort of common interest between Hindu and English traders. This is known as the collaboration thesis. Historians like Brijen Gupta or Hill sought to reflect upon religious polarization in society. There were divisions between the two religious communities, Hindus and Muslims.
Among those involved in the conspiracy against the young Nawab Siraj-ud-Dawla were Mir Jafar, the brother-in-law of Ali Vardi Khan, Ghaseti Begum, the eldest daughter of Ali Vardi Khan, Raj Ballav, a courtier and wealthy businessman, Rai Durlav, the family of noted bankers Jagat Seth, Umi Chand, Yar Lutaf, Khwaja Wazid. They were involved in the conspiracy for various reasons. However, no one had the courage to conspire against the Nawab alone. Being the brother-in-law of Ali Vardi Khan, Mir Jafar had immense influence in Murshidabad. He was supposed to be a loyal counselor to the Nawab. But the power-hungry Mir Jafar eventually conspired with the British East India Company to overthrow the young Nawab. Mehrun-Nessa, also known as Ghaseti Begum, was the eldest daughter of Nawab Ali Vardi. She was married to the Nawab's nephew, Nawazish Muhammad. After her husband's death, Ghaseti returned to her father's home in Murshidabad. Dewan Raj Ballav and Hussain Quli Khan were among her close acquaintances. Before his death in 1756, Nawab Ali Vardi, who did not have a son, nominated Siraj, son of his youngest daughter Amina, as the heir to the throne. Ghaseti Begum could not accept Siraj's nomination as Ali Vardi Khan's successor. She supported Shaukat Jung, the son of the middle sister, who was the ruler of Purdia. Adhering to Raj Ballav's counsel, Ghaseti Begum left Nawab's palace and began living at Motichil Palace with 10,000 guards. This place became the hub of conspiracy against Siraj. The young, ingenious Siraj first captured Ghaseti Begum and brought her back to the palace, severing her ties with Raj Ballav. Raj Ballav, on the other hand, pilfered Ghaseti Begum's wealth and sought refuge in the English camp. Young, determined Siraj defeated and killed Shaukat Jung at the Battle of Purnia. After Mir Jafar succeeded to the throne, Ghaseti Begum was drowned to death at the behest of his son Miran. Jagat Seth is not the name of any individual, it's a title. The Emperor of Delhi conferred this title on Fateh Chand, a wealthy merchant from Bengal, in 1723. Thereafter, all the members of this family came to be known as Jagat Seth.
This building houses the Museum of Jagat Seth, and the building behind is the house of Jagat Seth where he stayed. Jagat Seth was a title conferred by the Nawab of Bengal, which meant world merchant and banker, and he looked after the treasury account and mint of Bengal.
This family was involved in the conspiracy against Siraj. Fateh Chand's two grandsons, Madhav Chand and Swarup Chand, joined hands with the British East India Company in this heinous act. The family, along with Rai Durlab and Mir Jafar, spent a lot of money for this as well. They lent a tidy sum to the company. When Nawab Mir Qasim was expelled by the company in 1764, instead of repaying the family, the company denied the debt altogether. As a result, the family fortunes went into decline.
How much wealth he had is manifest from the fact that his total wealth was more than the total wealth of all the banks of England. So he was a big moneylender also, but Jagat Seth connived with or acquiesced in the conspiracy against Siraj-ud-Dawla, and during the Battle of Plassey financed the British, which ultimately led to Siraj-ud-Dawla's imprisonment and finally the execution.
The Dugar family had a business relationship with the Jagat Seths. Besides, there was a secret underground tunnel that connected their palaces. Although the tunnel is now out of use, the entrances to the secret passage are still unharmed. The aroma of aristocracy still drifts over the luxurious Katgola garden house of the Dugars. Umi Chand, whose real name was Amir Chand or Amin Chand, had his origins in Amritsar in the Punjab. He was a Sikh. He and his brother Deep Chand arrived in Calcutta in the middle of the 18th century and started their business. He tested his fortune in the company's transactions with the Zamindars of Murshidabad as a broker of the East India Company. He joined hands with others in the conspiracy against Siraj in 1757. He had an agreement with the company regarding the distribution of wealth acquired after the fall of the Nawab. But Clive deceived Umi Chand. He signed in a forged document. The original contract was published only after the Battle of Plassey. This deception made Umi Chand turn insane. He died in 1758. The British East India Company was established in 1600. On 31st of December that year, Queen Elizabeth I issued a charter granting the governor and company merchants of London an exclusive right to manage businesses in the then East Indies, ranging from the Cape of Good Hope to the whole of the East. There is a context for the issuance of this charter. At that time, Spain, Portugal, and the Netherlands expanded their trading empires outside Europe. Naturally, the merchants of England did not want to be left behind. Queen Elizabeth thought it necessary to encourage the merchant company formed by her people. Initially, the British East India Company conducted trade in the East Indian Islands. A few years later, in 1608, they arrived at the port of Surat in western India and sought to establish their trading fortune in India. William Hawkins, a representative of the company, received approval from Emperor Jahangir to build a kutti in Surat. But they faced strong resistance from the Portuguese merchant communities. However, the British company benefited from the support and assistance of the Dutch East India Company. In 1612, the English fought and drove the Portuguese out of Surat. The British Company received permission from the Mughal Emperor in 1613 to trade in Surat and elsewhere. In 1615, Sir Thomas Roe came to the court of Emperor Jahangir as an envoy of King James I. This mission came out to be a beneficial endeavor for the Englishmen. Gradually, they gained trading rights in Agra, Ahmedabad, Hooghly, and Madras. The Stuart King Charles II gifted Bombay to the company in 1668. Meanwhile, the company built a fort in the name of St. George in Madras. During this period, the company also built forts in Calcutta and Bombay to protect their cooties. In 1690, a British merchant, Job Charnock, bought Sutanuti, a village on the banks of the Ganges, from the Nawab of Bengal. Later, in 1698, two villages, Gobindapur and Kolikata, were also annexed to it. This is how the city and port of Calcutta came into existence. Later, Calcutta became an important center of trade and commerce for the East India Company. In 1691, the company received a decree from Nawab Ibrahim Khan of Bengal, which made their business tax exempt for an annual fee of rupees 3,000. At that time, the merchants outside the British East India Company had to pay 3% of their gross income. In 1715, Farrukhshire, the Mughal emperor, issued a decree granting this right to the company. For the next 150 years, from the beginning of the 18th century, the British East India Company was not merely a trading institution. The company gradually became the ruler of Eastern India and later of the entire country. The British East India Company sought to expand their power on the one hand, and on the other, they cleared their path by defeating the French and Dutch companies. The company also benefited from the fact that the central Mughal rule was waning at that time. The French yielded to the British Company at the Battle of Vandivash in 1761. Post the victory in the Battle of Plassey in 1757, the Nawab of Bengal became a puppet ruler in the hands of the company. Availing the Diwani rights of Bengal in 1765 marks the beginning of the official rule of the company in Eastern India. From 1766 to 1857, the company emerged as the ruler of India on behalf of the British government. After the Sepoy Mutiny, the Crown took over the reins of control, replacing the company Raj.
The Bengali poet Nobin Chandra Sen published a long poem in the year 1875 where he said that the battle was followed by a night of eternal gloom for India. He lamented that after this the foreign domination started. It was the beginning of British colonialism. The symbolic aspect of the Battle of Plassey is very important because it served a special role in the history, in the prehistory of Indian nationalism.
The local and overseas traders were afraid that they would cease to enjoy the mercantile benefits hitherto ensured by Nawab Alivardi. Employees of the company had profiteering personal businesses which flourished between the 1730s and mid-1740s. Nawab Siraj was discontent with their modes of operations. They did not oblige to the principles of free trade or dastak put into force during Alivardi's reign. They did not formally welcome the newly appointed Nawab. Besides, after embezzling money from the royal treasury, Krishnadas, son of Raj Ballav, sought refuge in the British Company. The company also disregarded Nawab Siraj's forbiddance and continued the expansion of Fort William.
Siraj-ud-Dawla, initially, he was successful against the British. In 1756, he had come down to Calcutta to stop the English East India Company from building illegal fortifications and had inflicted a defeat upon them. And at that time, there was an incident where a number of English prisoners died, and that gave rise later on to the gory legend of the Black Hole of Calcutta, which was either a concoction or at least a very great exaggeration. Much later, historians like Macaulay in the 1840s and Viceroy Curzon in the early 20th century had manufactured this black hole myth to denigrate the last independent king of Bengal.
Siraj declared war against the company and seized Fort William in 1756. The company promulgated the falsified account of the Black Hole tragedy to accentuate the supposed brutality of the seizure. The rumor was manufactured and disseminated to disgrace Nawab Siraj. It was said that on the 20th of June 1756, 146 people, including British employees and their families, were taken prisoners after the seizure of Fort William, imprisoned in a poorly ventilated chamber measuring 18 by 14 feet. 123 people died of suffocation. Surgeon John Holwell narratized the Black Hole tragedy in his book, Narrative of the Black Hole. However, eminent historians like Sir Jadunath Sarkar or Akshay Kumar Maitra doubted the authenticity of the account. Ghulam Hussain did not mention this incident in Riyaz-us Salatin, a seminal work on the Islamic history of Bengal.
This monument was erected in 1902 by Lord Curzon, then Governor General of India, to honor the memory of 123 persons who allegedly perished in the black hole prison of Old Fort William. The whole incident has been narrated by one survivor, John Zephaniah Howell, who was employed as a surgeon by the East India Company but who succeeded Lord Clive and became temporary governor of Bengal. His version was taken to be true for a long time and nobody questioned it. But now with the new evidence coming to the fore, historians have seriously questioned it, who find it difficult to accept it, and nobody can vouch for the truth. According to him, 146 people were housed in a small room which is not ventilated and had no windows, and 123 persons perished of suffocation. And there are so many other things which are not trustworthy. So it can be safely said that this black hole incident is a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma.
যে আমরা যা পড়ে এসেছি সবই ব্রিটিশ ঐতিহাসিকদের লেখা থেকেই আমরা জেনেছি। তার মধ্যে ভিনসেন্ট স্মিথ অক্সফোর্ড ইউনিভার্সিটি প্রেস বা
Our knowledge is based chiefly on the writings of the British historians. The scholars from Oxford and Cambridge echoed the dominant British perspective. In recent times, historians like Peter Marshall had taken other views into consideration. No one had a just assessment of Siraj.
The British East India Company, apart from the Nawab, apprehended the French and Armenians as their enemies. After Siraj's return to Murshidabad, the British East India Company, led by the newly appointed Robert Clive and naval commander Charles Watson, could manage to recuperate Fort William in 1757. Robert Clive, William Watts, and Luke Scrafton were the masterminds of the conspiracy against Siraj, the goal being the expulsion of the Nawab. The company was ready to go into the gutter. The Treaty of Ali Nagar was finally signed between Nawab Siraj-ud-Dowla and the company on the 9th of February 1757. The clauses of the treaty were in no way respectable for Nawab Siraj. Siraj's honor were mostly affected by it. The terms of the treaty were: 1. The Nawab must implement all the benefits granted to the company by the decree of the Emperor at Delhi. 2. The company should be given the right to repair Fort William. 3. The right to produce coins in the mint of the British East India Company in Calcutta should be given to the company. 4. The company should be compensated for the losses incurred. The British East India Company immediately violated the terms of the treaty. They invaded and seized the French colony in Chandarnagar. Secondly, they conspired in June 1757 with the over-ambitious Mir Jafar to dethrone Nawab Siraj. This accelerated the Battle of Plassey.
ব্রিটিশরা সিরাজ চরিত্রকে কলঙ্কিত কালিমালিপ্ত করেছেন, কিন্তু স্বদেশী যুগের প্রেক্ষাপটে
The British had tarnished Siraj's moral character. Historians like Akshay Kumar Maitreya and Shochin Sengupta had seen Siraj as a patriot in the context of Swadeshi movement. It is, however, true that Siraj lacked political maturity. Everyone thought that the fall of Siraj would bring economic prosperity and political transformation. History truly asks, was there any change at all? This laid the foundation for British rule.
The British East India Company violated the terms of the Ali Nagar Treaty and seized Chandarnagar within 1 month.
I'm standing at Chandarnagar right now, and just by my side is the river Ganges, which played a very significant and crucial role not only in trade but also in different battles fought in the 18th century. But it was preceded by the Battle of Chandarnagar by 3 months. So this Battle of Chandarnagar was a precursor to the Battle of Plassey, and in fact it was fought because the British were quite livid with the French, as they had an apprehension that the Nawab Siraj-ud-Dowla could vanquish the British in the Battle of Tank Square. So determined to completely extirpate and destroy the French army and the French settlement, they attacked this city on 23rd March 1757, made a very strategic planning, and 3 boats under the leadership of Vice Admiral Charles Watson came through this river. And though the French were quite prepared to counter the attack, there was a surprise attack from behind by Robert Clive, who came from Madras, which is now known as Chennai. And that surprise attack completely vanquished the French, and this Battle of Chandarnagar became very important for the British because it ultimately led to their victory in the Battle of Plassey.
ষোড়শ শতাব্দীর মধ্যভাগ থেকে ইউরোপীয় বণিকেরা ব্যবসার জন্য বাংলায় এসেছিল এবং তারা মূলত
European merchants came to Bengal in the 16th century. They built their trading centers on the west bank of the Hooghly River. Almost all of them had left the place. The cultural and architectural influences of the Europeans had made this region the Little Europe of Bengal.
As a result, a head-on confrontation between the Nawab and the East India Company became inevitable. Mir Jafar, with his ceaseless aspiration, Umi Chand, Rai Durlab, Manik Chand, the family of Jagat Seth, and Armenian trader Khwaja Wazid, with their unabated greed, joined hands with the British conspirators. The Nawab got trusted companions in Mohan Lal, Mir Madan, and Saint-Frey, the commander of the French artillery contingent. Although Mir Jafar was apparently in favor of the Nawab, he chose to be a passive bystander because of his vested interest. On 23rd June 1757, Siraj confronted the British East India Company in the mango orchard of Plassey. The initial triumphant moments soon turned into despair due to the treacherous act of Siraj's commander, Mir Jafar. The devastated and defeated Nawab fled to Raj Mahal in disguise. The ill-fated Nawab was eventually captured in Raj Mahal. The captive Nawab was brought back to Murshidabad. As commissioned by Mir Jafar's son Miran, Muhammad Beg killed Nawab Siraj at the infamous Namak Haram Dewri at Jafarganj.
এত বিশ্বাসঘাতকতা ব্রিটিশদের তরফে হয়েছিল যে সিরাজউদ্দৌলা তাদেরকে
The British betrayed Siraj. Siraj tried to have words with them. All they wanted was to dethrone the Nawab.
On the west bank of the Bhagirathi, south of Lal Bagh, is Khosh Bagh, the garden cemetery of the Nawabs of Bengal. The graveyard houses the tombs of Nawab Ali Vardi, Nawab Siraj, Lutfunnesa Begum, and probably of Ali Vardi's spouse, Sarfunnesa Begum. To the east of Nawab Ali Vardi's tomb lies Nawab Siraj, the last independent Nawab of Bengal, Bihar, Orissa.
Right now we are at Khosh Bagh. Khosh Bagh, that is the garden of happiness, Khushiyon ka Bagh. And here lies the tomb of the last independent Nawab of Sube Bengal, Muhammad Mirza Siraj-ud-Dawla, and just behind his tomb is situated the tomb of his maternal grandfather Ali Wardi Khan. Siraj-ud-Dawla was the favorite grandson of his grandfather Ali Wardi Khan, whom he succeeded, and his reign unfortunately was very brief, and the end of his rule marks the beginning of the rule of British East India Company in Bengal and later in the whole of India, and that changed the whole course of history.
After the tragic demise of Siraj, his widow was deported to Dhaka. Clive later assigned her to look after the cemetery.
সিরাজউদ্দৌলা অল্প বয়সী হতে পারে 17 বছরের সিংহাসন আরোহণ করেন এবং
Siraj ascended the throne when he was only 17 years old. His grandfather's unconditional affection might have made him unruly. This does not mean that he did not want to protect his country. Historian Rajat Kanta Roy sees Siraj as the first freedom fighter. He was the last independent Nawab and true leader against British domination.
After the Battle of Plassey, the British East India Company took control of Murshidabad. Mir Jafar, the new Nawab of Murshidabad, became a puppet in the hands of the company. The fragility of the central Mughal rule and administrative failure in Indian provinces led to the emergence of the East India Company as the imperial power. The young Nawab's uncompromising self-esteem and his headstrong impulsiveness to deal with various enemies was a major mistake. This led to his tragic end.
পলাশির ষড়যন্ত্রের পেছনে উপসাম্রাজ্যবাদ বা সাব ইম্পেরিয়ালিজম তত্ত্ব কতটা কার্যকরী ছিল এটা যদি আমাদের বুঝতে হয়, তাহলে আমাদের প্রথমে যেটা বুঝতে হবে সেটা হচ্ছে যে নবাবের দরবারে ষড়যন্ত্র আগেও ছিল।
The theory of sub-imperialism was at work behind the conspiracy. Conspiracies to dethrone the Nawab were not something new. The conspiracies did not involve any external force. This was the first time the British had been involved in a conspiracy against the Nawab.
The employees of the British East India Company administered sub-imperialism. They made use of the economic and martial strength of the company in Bengal for their desired benefits. As a result, the British Empire could occupy the productive soil of Bengal. Murshidabad has been the center of trade and commerce for local and foreign merchants since the Nawabi period. Following the transition of power after the Battle of Plassey, many of them settled here for ease of business. Many of them breathed their last here in Murshidabad. Their mortal bodies are lying here, far from their homes, with memories stored within their chests.
This is Residency Cemetery of Babul Bona. As you know, there are so many historic remains of the British Empire, and it is one of them. It has the tombs of several British residents, the most famous among them being Captain James Skinner, George Thomas, and Crichton. All of them have stories and histories. Most of them are not known, but this site is one of the historic sites of Murshidabad, which tells a lot about the significance that the city of Murshidabad enjoyed in the yesteryears. This is the cemetery where 47 tombs of the factory workers of the Netherlands are located. In fact, Bengal has had a very strong Dutch connection, which was a directorate of the Dutch East India Company from 1610 up to 1800 when the company was finally liquidated. In fact, after the Battle of Plassey, in which the British had a victory, the influence of the Dutch waned, but they wanted to regain that influence in the Battle of Chinchura in 1759, but they could not succeed. Finally, in 1795, they agreed the British should occupy this territory because they did not want the French to take it over.
The post-Plassey period witnessed an unrestrained drainage of wealth from the Bengal Suba. Between 1757 and 1765, the employees of the company managed to utilize the chaotic political situation and drew no less than 1,76 lakh rupees. Clive benefited the most. The most lucrative source of income for the employees were their private businesses. Primarily for trade and various other reasons, people of diverse origins populated Murshidabad. Assimilation of people from different ranks, caste, creed and religion shaped the liberal and composite culture of this place.
This imagination about the battle is also closely linked up with the rise of historicism in Bengal. Both Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay and Rabindranath Tagore wanted to encourage the writing of Bengal's history. Max Weber also talked about community of sentiments, which means that there has to be some community of sentiment before the rise of political nationalism. And Battle of Plassey and Sirajuddaulah actually served a special purpose in this prehistory of Indian nationalism. So, this is very important, and it reminds us of another book by Benedict Anderson, Imagined Communities, who said that nation states are actually imagined political communities. Now, what happened? Sirajuddaulah and the city of Murshidabad, it became the focal point of this prehistory of the emerging Indian nation.
The company received Diwani in 1765. Clive became the Diwan in 1766. The Regulating Act of 1773 declared Calcutta as the headquarters of the Governor General. Murshidabad, the erstwhile capital of the Bengal Suba, lost its glory. The erstwhile capital, Murshidabad, was converted to being a district town. Although the Nawabi era was over, the descendants of Mir Jafar were involved in various activities in Murshidabad.
इतिहास की पुस्तकों में यही बताया गया है कि जो प्लासी का युद्ध हुआ उसमें सिराजुद्दौला के साथ उनके सेनापति मीर जाफ़र ने गद्दारी की, लेकिन हमारे साथ मीर जाफ़र के ही ख़ानदान के सैयद मोहम्मद अली बाकिर मीरसा हैं, जो मीर जाफ़र की 10वीं पीढ़ी के हैं, और उनका ये कहना है कि मीर जाफ़र ने कोई गद्दारी नहीं की। तो इतिहास में जो ये बार बार बात आती है कि मीर जाफ़र ने गद्दारी की सिराजुद्दौला के साथ, उस पर आप क्या कहेंगे?
हिस्ट्री में मैंने ये हिस्टोरियन ने तो यही लिखा है, ये इल्ज़ाम है माने मीर जाफ़र के ऊपर। हालांकि इसके अंदर अगर देखा जाए तो ऐसी कोई बात नहीं है, कोई साबित नहीं कर सकता है कि मीर जाफ़र ने गद्दारी की। तो क्या गद्दारी की, किस तरह की गद्दारी की? सिर्फ यही है कि उन्होंने सपोर्ट नहीं किया।
जब जंग हो रही है और उस समय आप सेनापति हैं और सेना को लेकर खड़े रह गए, तो ये गद्दारी नहीं? तो
आप अगर आप सेनापति हैं तो जंग जो करेगा वो कौन करेगा? सेनापति करेगा ना। सेनापति को ऑर्डर कौन देगा? सिराजुद्दौला देगा। है कहीं पर ये कि सिराजुद्दौला ने उनको ऑर्डर किया है? वो तो थोटो मोटो खा के रह गए कि आखिर ये जंग हो रही है काहे के लिए? क्योंकि जंग हुई है, आपको उस दिन मैंने किताब में भी दिखा दिया कि इंग्लिश वर्सेस फ्रेंच हुई है। क्योंकि आपको हर इतिहास में आप किताब में देख लीजिए कि फर्स्ट गन वाज फायर बाय द फ्रेंच।
कुर्सी किसको मिली?
मीर जाफ़र को मिली।
हाँ, तो फिर यही तो गद्दारी कही
तो
जाएगी।
मीर जाफ़र ने तो मैंने ये नहीं किया, सिराजुद्दौला भाग गए, मीर जाफ़र ने सरेंडर नहीं किया है। खतरा उसको मीर जाफ़र से था, लिहाजा उसने आया, मीर जाफ़र के पास आया। तस्वीर में अक्सर तस्वीर आती है कि दिखाया जाता है कि वो अपने हैट उतार के कहा कि यू आर द नवाब।
जिसकी मैं नौकरी
हुकूमत संभालना होगा,
जिसकी नौकरी कर रहा हूँ, चाकरी कर रहा हूँ, उसको भाग जाना पड़े, उसका कत्ल हो जाए और बाद में उसको उसकी कुर्सी मिल जाए और आप कहते हैं कि उसकी कोई गलती नहीं है।
वो तो एक्चुअली नौकर थे ही नहीं। He was appointed by the दिल्ली वन किंग।
आप ये कहना चाह रहे हैं कि सारी गलती सिराजुद्दौला की थी?
नहीं, सिराजुद्दौला की गलती तो हम नहीं कह रहे। हम सिराजुद्दौला को कहाँ पर कहा कि गलती किया उन्होंने? उनकी गलती यही है ये कि टीपू सुल्तान की तरह वो भी अगर मैदान जंग में मारे जाते तो मेरे ख्याल में सबसे बड़ा हीरो वही होता।
आपने तो खुद ही शुरू में माना कि इतिहासकारों ने गद्दार ही माना है।
हाँ,
आप खुद ही मान रहे हैं, तो सारे इतिहासकार क्यों खिलाफ हो जाएंगे मीर जाफर के?
Even though no descendant of Nawab Siraj could be located, the Chote Nawab, a descendant of Mir Jafar, still resides in Lal Bagh.
I am the grandson of last Nawab Murshidabad. मेरे ग्रैंडफादर लास्ट नवाब थे। आपका हम क्या कहते हैं कि मीर जाफर ने गद्दारी की और उन्होंने जंग नहीं किया। जो कमांडर जंग नहीं करता है या वॉर को डिलीट करता है, वो चाहे वो मीर जाफर हो, चाहे हम हो या कोई भी हो, तो उसको लोग एक अच्छे नज़र से नहीं देखेंगे, ख़राब नज़र से देखेंगे। मीर जाफर ने वहाँ वॉर को वैलिड किया, इसलिए वो बदनाम हो गए कि उन्होंने शायद से गद्दारी की।
Since the Nawabi period, a number of small and medium traders of Murshidabad and Qasim Bazar have been making huge profits in the booming trade of silk. Post the era of the wealthy bankers and traders, the Nandis and Roys of Qasim Bazar made immense fortune in Murshidabad. This architecture was not built during the reign of the independent Nawabs of Bengal. Nevertheless, this is one of the significant architectures of Murshidabad. The three-storied palace was built under the supervision of General Duncan Macleod. Construction began in 1829 and was completed in 1837. The palace is famously known as the Hazar Duari Palace, as it has 1,000 duars or doors.
This is Hazar Duari, the identity of Murshidabad. It was constructed by the Nawab of Bengal, Humayun Jah, almost 125 years after the city was founded in 1724 by Murshid Quli Jafar Khan, who, after founding it, shifted the capital from Dhaka to this place and named it after himself. It was the capital of Bengal, which then comprised Bangladesh, West Bengal, Bihar, Jharkhand and Odisha for 70 years. But its decline began after 1857 when Siraj-ud-Dawla lost the Battle of Plassey.
The architecture at present is preserved and maintained by the Archaeological Survey of India. This arena is called Nizamat Qilla. The complex also houses several other architectural wonders like the Imambara, Medina, the clock tower known as Gharighar, and 3 mosques.
If one thinks of Qazi Nazrul Islam's poetry, we hear the poet lament, Bangalir khune lal holo je tha Palashir prantor. Subhash Chandra Bose always believed that Hindus and Muslims had jointly run the administration of the country, whether under the Mughal Empire or under the independent Nawabs of Bengal. He always felt that it was important for Indian patriots to defend the honor of Nawab Siraj-ud-Dawla. And that is why the last movement that he launched while he was in India was one to remove the Holwell monument from Dalhousie Square outside Writers' Building, because he felt that it was a slur on the good name of Nawab Siraj-ud-Dawla of Bengal. We find that when he proclaimed the Azad Hind government on the 21st of October 1943, in his very first sentence, he made a reference to 1757. This is what he wrote and proclaimed. After their first defeat at the hands of the British in 1757 in Bengal, the Indian people fought an uninterrupted series of hard and bitter battles over a stretch of 100 years. The history of this period teems with the examples of unparalleled heroism and self-sacrifice. And in the pages of that history, the names of Siraj-ud-Dawla and Mohanlal of Bengal, Hyder Ali, Tipu Sultan and Velu Thampi of South India, Appa Sahib Bhosle and Peshwa Bajirao of Maharashtra, the Begums of Awadh, Sardar Sham Singh Atariwala of Punjab, and last but not least, Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi, Tantia Tope, Maharaja Kanwar Singh of Dumrao, and Nana Sahib among others. The names of all these warriors are forever engraved in letters of gold.
265 years have passed since the battle between Nawab Siraj-ud-Dawla and the East India Company at the historic fields of Plassey. The monuments of the past reverberate with innumerable stories untold and unheard. The heroic aura of Nawab Siraj as the last independent ruler of Bengal will remain forever in all romanticism. The mango orchard of Plassey murmurs. Yonder in the fields of Plassey stood Clive with blood on his hands. In the Ganges ahead, had set the sun of India. The scarlet hue of our blood will maketh the sun rise again.